Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Zelenskyy caves, but Mexico and Canada are standing strong against tariffs. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I think if you took a poll of the listeners of the Ari Hoffman Show, you would find the two topics we cover the most often are demonizing the homeless and issues related to kids and education. And we take this very seriously because, number one, I'm a parent. Number two, we like kids, unless they're annoying us on airplanes and stuff. We are big kids, but we care about the future of our country. We care about kids' education. We care about parents' rights. We care about these things. The Democrats in Washington have shown you are just the sperm donor. You are just the egg giver if they actually acknowledged biology, which they don't. But those are their kids, not your kids. They don't follow the science. And anytime they say they follow the science, I'll just say, COVID much? 2 years? 3 years? How many of you still wearing masks? How many of you are up to date on your vaccines for the COVID shot? They don't follow the science. If they followed the science, it wouldn't be climate change. It would be pollution, which is one of the factors of climate change. And they would deal with the homeless situation, which you have spontaneously combusting RVs that are sending tons and tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, or the waste they're dumping on the streets, or the trash they're leaving everywhere. Leftist logic is we have to ban plastic bags. But here's a plastic needle to stick in your arm with a metal end to it so you can kill yourself. Their latest stunt is reprehensible. It's despicable. It's degenerate. And Mike's probably thinking to himself, I've never heard Ari use any of those words at one time. He must be really, really upset because those are not words we usually use around here. Our friend Brandy Cruz found this last night, that the Democrats are working on a joint resolution to add an amendment to the Washington State Constitution. Ready for what it says? And this is sponsored by most of the Democrats in the Washington State Senate. That at the next general election to be held in this state, the Secretary of State shall submit to the qualified voters of the state for their approval and ratification or rejection a new article to the Constitution of the state of Washington to read as follows. Article 33, reproductive freedom and gender-affirming care. Hang on a second. Abortion is already codified in Washington state law. What are you doing? Oh, you're just sliding it in there so that way you can attach the mutilation of minors to it, because you're going to get everybody who doesn't pay attention to political shows to say, oh, Republicans are trying to ban abortion. We got to make sure they don't. We got to put it in the state constitution. Don't pay any attention to those small little letters there that talk about gender-affirming care, a.k.a. mutilation of children for life. Here's what it says. The state shall not deny or interfere with any individual's reproductive freedom decisions, which includes the individual's fundamental right to choose to have an abortion, the individual's fundamental right to choose to use contraception. A question, how would the state actually do that? I have a question. How would the state actually, is the state going to go into your bedroom and be like, oh, sorry, you can't be wearing that right now? Okay. The individual's fundamental right to choose to use assisted reproductive technology. Nobody's doing these things. We're back to the same old lies that Donald Trump is trying to stop IVF and other ways to have kids. And the individual's fundamental right to be free from discrimination on the basis of the individual's pregnancy outcome. What? What are they talking about? Nor shall the state deny or interfere with an individual's gender-affirming care decisions. Nothing in this article narrows or limits the right to liberty, privacy, or equal protection under the laws. Oh, now you're trying to make it a civil rights issue. So let me paint for you exactly how this would work out. Let's say this gets adopted. And you have a kid who's undergoing a mental health crisis, because otherwise, why would you want to cut off your junk? Sorry for being graphic. But a kid's undergoing a mental health crisis, and mom and dad say, no, let's get you some psychological help. And the kid goes, but all my friends are doing it, and my teacher says to do it, assuming the kid even talks to the parents. Then the kid can go on their own and get this done, because at the age of 13 here in Washington, you can make your own medical decisions. And in fact, parents need the kid's permission to get their medical records, and you can go have a life-altering surgery with your parents not even knowing about it. Or even if your parents know about it and say no, you can go do that. That is what the Democrats want. What the Democrats want in this is abortions up to and past the time of birth, gender mutilating surgeries for kids at basically any age, because they're going to say, oh, the 6-year-old is a boy and wants to be a girl. Well, this is their civil right. Let him do it. And they don't want the parents to know anything about it. This is not me teeing you all up to be upset. This is not me fear-mongering. This is the literal text of the bill. And you have to look at it in conjunction with all the other bills they are working on this session and the ones they have already passed. Now, clearly, this resolution is in response to President Donald Trump's executive order that will cut federal funding to hospitals providing destructive and life-altering, gender-altering procedures on children. Last month, Seattle Children's Hospital stopped performing the controversial surgeries on minors, and the stranger went ballistic. Now, here's the thing. 25 of the Democrats in the state Senate are supporting this, are sponsoring this. This is no longer the fringe. This isn't the people at the stranger. This is now the mainstream. Is anybody surprised when you have people like Jamie Peterson, who keep saying, oh, well, parents don't have right to know what the kids are doing afterwards? Is anybody surprised by any of this? Any of this? Of course not. This is what they have been working on this whole time. This is what they are doing. Unbelievable. But yet so not. This is their MO. Take the parent decisions away. The state knows how to parent your kid better than you do. Last Friday night, federal judge Lauren King in Seattle granted Washington State's request for a preliminary injunction to block President Donald Trump's executive order restricting gender-altering procedures. Washington Attorney General Nick Brown has criticized the Trump administration's policy, which halted federal funding to medical institutions providing gender-altering procedures, including puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgical procedures to individuals under 19 years old. Let's not forget what Jamie Peterson said. He said kids over 13 have the right to make their own decisions about their own mental health care. Parents don't have the right to notice. They don't have a right to consent about that. About 13-year-olds, he said if they're old enough to get pregnant, they're old enough to make decisions about what happens with their bodies, and parents do not have the right to change that. In fact, he was probably saying that about kids as young as 9 or 10 years old. Now, let's remember, at the same time all this is going on, Washington Senate Democrats, the same people who are pushing this constitutional amendment, are the ones who unanimously voted to strip parental rights from the legislation they passed with Republicans last year. This is the Let's Go Washington initiative, which collected close to 500,000 signatures to bring Initiative 2081 before the legislature that reaffirms 15 rights that parents of public school students have, including notifying parents of academic, medical, safety, and law enforcement issues, the right to examine and request records and educational materials. Washington Democrats rejected many common sense amendments to Senate Bill 5181, including an amendment that would restore provisions granting parents and legal guardians the right to receive notification when medical services are offered to their child, which, don't forget, there are clinics in Seattle schools. Every Senate Republican voted against the bill. Despite voting for the initiative last year, Democrats have been seeking to undermine it since it passed. Last week, a judge dismissed a lawsuit brought by left-leaning groups, including the ACLU and donors, that was attempting to block several aspects of the bill. Peterson and Speaker of the House Lori Jenkins, who are leading the effort to gut the Parental Rights Initiative, previously wrote an op-ed claiming they supported it because approximately 90% of the initiative was already state law. Well, now they're trying to undo state law. Do you not see what's going on here? The companion legislation, the Washington House of Representatives, House Bill 1296, is still working its way through the chamber. Last month, Democrats in the House voted against an amendment that would have required school districts to immediately notify parents if their student is the victim of sexual misconduct by a school employee. Democrats voted against that. You want to know how much worse this can get? In the last legislative session, Washington Democrats passed Senate Bill 5599, which critics say encourages minors to run away from home to receive gender-affirming care and maternity services without parental consent and at taxpayer expense. The bill, signed into law by Jay Inslee, allows shelters and host homes to provide housing for runaway minors without being required to notify their parents if they have a compelling reason to keep the information a secret. Critics slammed the bill as turning Washington into a sanctuary state for sex changes and abortions. And that's exactly what's happening here. Well, Ari, you sound pretty fired up about this. But you know what? This is saving kids' lives. Gender-affirming care saves lives. You cannot show me a single study that wasn't paid for by a special interest group that proves that. You cannot show me one. The claim by the left is that suicides go down when people change their gender. Not only does it not go down, it goes up. There is a new survey out from the American College of Pediatrics. That is not somebody in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. The American College of Pediatricians released a position statement on February 7th stating that social transition, puberty blockers, and cross-sex hormones have no demonstrable long-term benefit to the psychosocial well-being of adolescents with gender dysphoria. A review of at least 60 research papers demonstrates no benefit to social affirmation, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, or surgical interventions for the youths. This was written by lead author and vice president, Dr. Jane Anderson. All 60 of the reviewed studies focused on the mental health of adolescents struggling with gender dysphoria. In a fact sheet summarizing the finding, the agency noted that youth whose perceived gender identity does not align with their biological sex have high rates of mental health problems, regardless of any affirmation of their gender identities. Adolescents who identify as gender incongruent often have existing mental health illnesses, including depression and anxiety. By the way, there's been a massive increase in this stuff. Hasn't there also been a massive increase in depression and anxiety ever since COVID, ever since they locked these kids out of the schools, ever since they shut down their social lives, took away prom, took away junior prom, took away homecoming, took away sports, took away art, took away everything they had. These kids, their entire social lives, destroyed it for a year or two here in Washington. Transgender youth also reported the highest levels of abuse and neglect. The researchers said their review cast doubts on claims that social affirmation, like using desired pronouns of transgender identified youths, helps their long-term psychosocial well-being. So, this is all BS. Everything that's being claimed by the left is nonsense. And instead, what are you doing? You're crippling these kids for life. If you have kids in the car, normally I would tell you to earmuff it. But I think it's important they hear this if you actually have kids who are considering this. Have you seen the pictures of what they do to construct the fake body parts and how they skin your arm, how they skin your leg? It looks like something out of Silence of the Lambs. And something else. You have to have a lifetime of not just drugs, hormone blockers, hormone replacement, but also other procedures to keep it intact because it is not meant to be that way. It's not. You know, it's hard for people to admit they have a mental health problem, be it depression, PTSD, anxiety, any of that stuff. Now imagine a kid who's worried about being socially ostracized for anything under the sun. You're not wearing the right shirt. You're not wearing the right pants. You're not wearing the right sneakers. You're not in the right clubs. You're not popular enough. You're not on the football team. You're not in the cheerleading squad. And now say, oh, now we've created a new category. You don't identify as non-binary. You don't identify as one of the alphabet people. And that was a way of making people feel excluded, especially kids, because you see who gets the special treatment. So, average white kid in a school. Well, let's see. I don't identify as LGBTQ anything else. I'm not a person of color. I'm not a minority. And I'm not oppressed in any way, shape, or form. Oh, wait a second. I'm now the outsider? This is social design to exclude people. That's what this is. You think this is going to make a kid feel less anxiety? You think this is going to make a kid feel less depression? No, it's only going to ramp it up. I have 3 kids, and any parent knows what I'm talking about. When they take the kid out, oh my God, when are they coming back? When are they coming back? I mean, I love them all, but they got to, well, are they at the bottom of a ravine? God forbid, God forbid, God forbid, in a wreck. I haven't heard from them in 20 minutes. Oh my God. Maybe your intrusive thoughts aren't like mine. The nightmares I have about things happen to my kids, and I'm just all happy when the alarm is set and the cameras are on and the gun's next to my bed so I can protect them if, God forbid, anything happens in my own house. And then they go away to college. Then they grow up. And your fears only multiply and multiply and multiply and multiply. I can only imagine. I got one who's in college right now in another country. This is how parents think. And Democrats think they can run it. The same people who ran up a $15 billion budget gap think they can be in charge of your kids. A government which has seen test scores plummet, which has seen enrollment plummet, which has seen their finances completely out of whack with schools, thinks they can manage your kids. A government which has poured more money into Homeless Inc. and seen it only get worse, thinks they can take care of your kids. A government with Department, Children, Youth, and Family Services, which has scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal, so bad that Bob Ferguson's office had to hide documents during lawsuits and got called out for it, thinks they can handle your kids. A government who does such a terrible job with our veterans, with Social Security, with Medicare, with Medicaid, with medical decisions of any kind, thinks they can take care of your kids better than you can. So here's what I want you to do today. I know a lot of you listen to the show and you go, I'm going to let somebody else make the phone call. I'm going to let somebody else make the phone call. Oh, look, everybody from Ari's show called. I don't have to worry about that bill anymore. Not good enough for today. Not good enough. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to call the Washington Legislative Hotline. You want to go online and do it? You can go online and do it through their website. But I need you to call the hotline. 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. And I need you to say no to the constitutional amendment for gender-affirming care. I'm not even giving you the numbers. You don't need them. Just say it's the constitutional amendment. They will know what you are talking about. And then you say, I want to keep my parental rights and I want to say no to the Senate bill and the House bill that's working to take them away. They will know what you are calling about. 1-800-562-6000. 1-800-562-6000. Because if we put the government in charge of the Sahara Desert, they would run out of sand. Because they have chosen not to have their own kids, they want yours. Because they want their next generation of brainwashed psychopaths. And if they don't get them through Gender World, they'll get them with the Hamas stuff, or with the Black Lives Matter stuff, or with the immigration, or the I Hate Trump, or whatever it is. They will not stop till they have your children. It is a miracle to me today that so many kids come out as normal as they do, surviving this. It's a miracle for everyone that does, every single one, but that number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which is why more and more parents are sending their kids to private school. I knew a family where their child, the school was concerned they were having mental health difficulties, and they recommended they go to a counselor. And the family said to me, Ari, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, when you start looking at counselors, start seeing how they feel about gender-affirming care. Just ask them that question when you start interviewing counselors. They couldn't find a single one that wasn't in favor of this insanity, that say, no, that's a last option. No, the science hasn't been proven yet. They couldn't find one. Not one. The system is against you. The system is against your kids, but you can do something. You can say no to this insane constitutional amendment. 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. Because if you're not going to make this call, tell you guys, it's going to go through. It's going to pass. It's going to get through. The Democrats will find a way to shove it down your throats, and then they're going to market it as if they are fighting abortion and fighting Donald Trump. You are the one who can stop it. Lots more to discuss, including things that are out of your control, like the Seattle city attorney, who is now jumping on the bandwagon with trying to sue the Trump administration to make Seattle a sanctuary state. I'll give you all details when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
You're not alone. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Isn't it amazing that all you have to do in order to make sure there's no illegal immigrants coming across the border is to actually enforce the law? Want some numbers? Here we go. Here's some numbers for you. Here's how many illegal immigrants came across the border in February of 2022. 166,000. In 2023, 156,630. In 2024, 189,913. Now remember, all those numbers don't include the gotaways that we don't even know how many came across. Those are the ones we know about. In 2025, 8,326. That's it. Now, mind you, it's not nothing. There's still work to be done, but that is a 94% decrease. Wait. Hang on. Did they pass any bills? I don't remember them passing any bills to stop the border crisis. Do you? Hey, Joe Biden, what did you have to say about that?
Have you made a final decision on taking executive order in terms of what you want to do at the border? That includes the power to shut down the border, as it was suggested.
Well, it suggested that. We're examining whether or not I have that power.
He says there's a lack of urgency in Washington on this issue. Does your administration bear responsibility for that?
It is no secret for anyone that we have a broken immigration system.
The reason we have chaos at the border is because Republicans have continued to refuse to fix the legal immigration system.
To those who think that if President Trump wins, that we can get a better deal, you won't.
There's more you can do. Captain, not all I can do. Just give me the power.
Okay. That's the thing they claimed. We can't do it. We don't have the power. We can't do it. Yeah, guess what? Turns out you can. And who's trying to stop it? Washington State. Washington State is trying to stop it. They sue over everything. And now Seattle is joining in the fray. Now, this is performative because if sanctuary state status remains, Seattle will remain. This is performative. Jumping on this dog pile regarding the lawsuits. Well, now, according to Como News, the city of Seattle has joined a lawsuit with other major cities that are being threatened with the loss of federal funding if they do not comply with immigration enforcement. On Monday, Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson called the Trump administration's threats to withhold funding from cities with sanctuary laws an example of federal overreach. Quote, disregarding established law, President Donald Trump has attempted to coerce local authorities and to commandeer local jurisdictions into carrying out the duties of the federal executive branch while punishing those who dissent. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is Donald Trump is enforcing the law, and you guys are refusing to do so. What's really going on here? This is political. Ann Davidson wants to get reelected. The margins were too close for her liking last time because she was running against Nicole Thomas Kennedy, the queen psycho of Antifa, and her challenger is going to come from the left. So she is trying to double down on her Democrat dedication because everybody knows she very publicly switched parties over to the Republican Party in the last cycle, and she's going to get called out for that. She's going to get called out for being law and order. You should say, yes, and I'm trying to make things better. Would you like to go back to 2020 because those things were terrible? But instead, she's working on getting endorsements from every Democrat in the known universe. Now, you may say, that's smart. She's saying what she needs to do in order to get elected, and she's better than what we could get. But my friends, I don't like this at all. Because here's the thing. Would you like to know the kinds of people that ICE is finding around here? That Seattle is refusing to help? ICE Seattle arrested an illegal immigrant with an extensive criminal history, including kidnapping, assault, and burglary, as part of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement efforts. Alonzo Lopez Mundo, 27 of Mexico, was taken into custody last week in Burlington, Washington. He was previously deported from the United States and unlawfully returned at an unknown date. ICE Seattle announced his apprehension in a post on Monday. U.S. Border Patrol Blaine sector agents assigned with the operation helped out. Court records show that he was most recently apprehended in Skagit County on September 4th. He now faces several felony charges, including theft, malicious mischief, criminal impersonation related to that case. Authorities released him from the jail without notifying ICE, despite his unlawful immigration status. Literally yesterday, we told you the case of the Guatemalan sex offender who was here, who they arrested, who was able to register a white panel van. A sex offender was able to register a white panel van. Literally, it's the meme. Literally, it's the joke. Literally, it's every movie I've ever seen before. But this is who Ann Davidson, Nick Brown, Bob Ferguson, and the Democrats want to keep in our state and our country. Speaking of Democrats, by the way, coming up tonight is the State of the Union. Oh, wait, am I not allowed to call it the State of the Union? Well, I'm going to call it the State of the Union. And we've got a little preview of what the Democrats have planned for it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I love the Democrats and members of the media saying, this isn't the State of the Union. It's not technically a State of the Union. How can it be a State of the Union? Shall we pull up the section from the Constitution about the executive branch? I'm just going to read right from this. Ready? You tell me which point it says State of the Union. He shall, from time to time, give to the Congress information of the State of the Union, and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses, or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers. He shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all the officers of the United States. First things first, I think we got a big problem if a woman ever wins president. He. I'm going to leave that for somebody other than me to deal with. All right. But he shall from time to time give to the Congress information on the State of the Union. Well, he's showing up and he's giving information to Congress about the State of the Union. That's not a State of the Union. No, it's not a State of the Union. Enough. This is stupid. So he's giving the State of the Union address. I love the State of the Union because it's all fake. Any president can say whatever they want. It's theater. They bring in the guests. They point to the guests. They come through the room. Everybody stands up. Everybody's got their little pins and their little hats and their little slogans and whatever else they're going to do. I love it just for the theatrics. I do. I don't care who's president. Do you know why I love the State of the Union? I had a teacher back in college. I took a class on radio broadcasting, actually. Do you know what it was about? It was about writing segments for radio from an Emmy-winning radio producer of WABC in New York. And my very first assignment in this class, and this is the only radio class I ever took. Mike, I completely forgot I even took part of this class. So what was it? Write a 1-minute summary of the State of the Union. So I had to watch. This was George Bush's State of the Union after 9/11. That's the first one I watched. And I had to write a 1-minute summary of that. That's when I learned how much you can get in 1 minute and how much you can't, and what's important, what's not important. Ever since then, I said, this is so much fun to watch. And that was the depressing one. That was the doom and gloom one. No. It is so much fun. I don't care who the president is. I don't care if it's Obama. I don't care if it's Biden. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's Bush. I don't care who it is. I love the theatrics. But at the same time, a matter of decorum. We get mad at Marjorie Taylor Greene when she goes off the reservation during this nonsense and starts yelling. Well, now the Democrats are planning shenanigans, bringing noisemakers, planning on bringing signs, being disruptive, chanting, calling out. I got to say, Republicans, you kind of brought this on yourself by having people like Marjorie Taylor Greene do a little bit of this. Now, the Democrats do it as a group. This is crazy. Is it going to be like that video of the parliament? Which parliament was it? I think it was Europe somewhere where all of a sudden they're throwing smoke bombs at each other. Yeah, let's not do that, please. But in advance of this, Democrats have a new message. What's their new message? We're going to hit him on the economy. He said he was going to fix it day one. He hasn't fixed it yet. Now, the problem is the Democrats doing this are clowning themselves because they're the ones who made the economic mess. So basically you're saying is, you haven't cleaned up our mess yet. Why haven't you cleaned up our mess yet? So this is a video that they're putting out there. This is Chuck Schumer. He's the first one to release the video on social media. I know it's going to be about 90 seconds of pain, but I want you to listen to it for a specific reason.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of groceries, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials is not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing, goose eggs, to lower prices for you.
Okay, I can't handle that anymore. I just can't because you guys made this mess. You guys made this mess. Sorry, it takes more than 30 days to clean it up. Sorry, it takes more than 60 days to clean it up. But what's funny is whoever's in charge of social media for the Democrats had a bunch of them do it. And I think the only reason not all of them did it is because the Republicans started making fun of them for making the exact same cringe-worthy, stupid video So much so, this is what it sounds like when you put them all together.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one, Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse. The prices of groceries, gas, and housing.
Okay, enough. That's super annoying. Enough. Meanwhile, they're not going to recognize any wins. Now, you may say, Ari, you do the same thing to Joe Biden. How many times did I say on this show, if you can think of something Joe Biden accomplished, you give us a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I couldn't name anything he accomplished without being sarcastic. I couldn't name one thing. You want one thing that Donald Trump may be about to achieve? Zelenskyy caved today. That's right. Launches into this whole long tweet of, I love America, and I love Donald Trump, and I love everything, and I'm ready to sign the deal right now. Now, mind you, I'll believe it when I see pen to paper. I'll believe it when I see him actually follow through on it. I'll believe it then, because don't forget, this will now be the fourth time he said he was going to sign that deal. But you don't hear the Democrats getting all excited about that. It's just going to be performative disruption. But that's what the State of the Union's all about, right? At the end of the day, Donald Trump is moving so fast, they can't keep up with him. So what they're going to try and do here is be disruptive to make it look like chaos. You hear them use that word all the time, chaos, 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 chaos. That's what they're going to try and make it look like tonight because he doesn't have control over the country, and they know what I know. Donald Trump at State of the Union is at his absolute best. That is when he shines. They're going to try and be as disruptive as possible to make him not shine because they know that when Americans see that, most of them don't follow the news every single day, but they will see clips of the State of the Union. And they want the headlines to be Donald Trump chaotic State of the Union. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, Oscars were the lowest rated in recent years. What do you think the reason behind that is? Did you watch them? Did I watch them? Give you details when we come back, plus your calls. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Well, we all know the saying, go woke, go broke. Oscars viewership was down 7% this year. So you still had approximately 18.1 million people tuning in, but this isn't like it used to be. Now, you may say, oh, Ari, that's what happens every single year. No, actually, no. The numbers had been going up since 2021. And you may think to yourself, wait, with all the craziness they did, with all the insanity, yeah, they were actually going up a little bit, but they were going up. This year, you want my theory on why nobody watched the Oscars? Because nobody heard of most of the movies. It wasn't even political. Most people had no idea what these movies are about. Mike was giving me a hard time yesterday because I completely missed the boat on some of these movies that were nominated. I didn't listen to the soundtrack. My wife said to me, while she was watching the Oscars, what do you mean you haven't heard the crazy soundtrack of the movie that won whatever it won? I don't even know what it won. She goes, how do you not hear about this transitioning soundtrack that's not just all about transitioning surgery, but it's bad. It's awful. And my wife and I are musical people. We like going to the musicals, much to the chagrin of my friends around here at KVI. They make fun of me about these things. But we like going to the musicals. This was bad. It was terrible. It was awful. Nobody wanted to watch the Oscars because nobody heard of the movies. People just didn't want to watch the things. You may have dipped in, you may have dipped out, but at the end of the day, who are you cheering for? If you have somebody to cheer for, what's the point of watching? What, a bunch of Hollywood types just pat each other on the back on how great they are? Somebody said, I think it was my son. My son said something very deep to me. And as a theater major, it kind of ripped out my heart for a minute here as a frustrated theater kid. And then I realized, oh my God, he's 100% right. He was talking about the death of Gene Hackman. And my son said something very interesting. He said, I love Gene Hackman and all, but I would never want to be remembered for spending my life pretending to be somebody else. And I went, interesting take. Kid doesn't want to be an actor. Okay, interesting take. He said, loves Gene Hackman. That's not the issue. But at the same time, yeah, it's a whole bunch of people pretending to be somebody else. It's an art form. We recognize it as an art form. We get entertainment. We get enjoyment from these things. I'm not saying my kid doesn't watch movies, but I thought that was an interesting take. Viewership had steadily been increasing since COVID until this year's massive drop-off. Now, despite fewer viewers, the broadcast was the most watched primetime entertainment program this year that wasn't sports or news. Okay, that's stacking the deck. Do you know why? Does anybody put anything against the Oscars that's real? No, it's a rerun night. Nobody runs new shows because they don't want to go head-to-head with a ratings juggernaut, even at low ratings, like the Oscars, like the Super Bowl. Do you even know what's on during the Super Bowl? No, you just don't know. You have to figure out what channel it's on. So anyway, let's be real about this for a minute, shall we? The numbers are going down. My guess is it's because nobody had anybody to root for and hadn't heard of the movies that were up there. And by the way, I don't think the marketing was that good either. I had no idea that Conan O'Brien was even hosting this thing. And I got to say, a lot of other people were shocked to find out he was hosting this thing. That seemed to be a surprise for anybody who doesn't have cable anymore or doesn't watch the network TV anymore. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up?
Oh, nothing much. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, you talked about Ann Davidson wanting to refuse to go along with Donald Trump's orders, for having these raids or for ICE. I think here is the real problem that we are going to start having here over the next few months. Since Turd Ferguson and Bruce Harrell both want the state of Washington and the city of Seattle to be sanctuary, this means they want more undocumented aliens in here so that they can get prepaid disposable phones, prepaid credit cards, and $5,000.
Well, they're not getting a lot of that anymore unless the city's giving it out. Now, I do know the state's giving it out, but right now, don't forget, feds have cut off a lot of that kind of stuff. What's going to happen is the illegal immigrants are going to run to all the blue states and all the blue cities that are still doing these giveaways because they're not getting them from the feds anymore if they refuse to leave. So you're right, we're going to see a lot more of it. But notice, we're still catching a whole bunch of these guys. We're still deporting a whole bunch of these guys, and the feds are going to keep doing what they do. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, there is hope on the horizon. Let's Go Washington has dropped a brand new initiative Brian Haywood is going to swing by and tell us what it's all about. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And coming up this hour, Trump administration is going after colleges for violating civil rights laws. But before we get to any of that, time for another daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
If you recall, just a few months ago, the Washington State Legislature passed Initiative 2081 with sweeping bipartisan support. Now, this is an initiative that you worked on, that you passed, that you collected signatures for to get on the ballot, to get in front of the legislature, and the legislature passed it. What was it? The Parents' Rights Initiative, where you said, no, the school doesn't get to hide what's going on with my kid. I get to know what's going on with my kid. And the Democrats passed it. And then ever since it passed, they've been suing to try and undo it. Now they're trying to undo it at the legislature. So Let's Go Washington, which got the initiative passed the first time, is now running another initiative to make sure the Democrats don't mess with it. Joining us now from Let's Go Washington, the one and only Brian Haywood. Thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Good afternoon, everybody.
So let me make sure I got this right. You didn't have enough fun last year in passing 7 initiatives, doing all the work for the 7 initiatives, spending your money to get these initiatives passed. You decide to saddle up again?
Yeah, I think the first attempt was just to get the attention of the legislature and say, hey, stop doing crazy stuff. We don't need you have a job of making laws to govern the state, and the initiative process isn't to isn't to take over that, but it's to point out when you guys have overstepped. And overwhelmingly, by bipartisan majority, they approved the Parental Bill of Rights, and I think they were a little bit afraid of how popular it was with the population and with citizens. But they sort of did it with a nod and a wink, and told their special interests, hey, don't worry, in the next session, we'll gut this thing. And so they've come up with a bill, number 5181, in the Senate it's out of the Senate, it's to the House for reconciliation, that would essentially cut all the important protections out of 2081. And including the really important one, of course, is notification to parents. Something goes on with your kid at school. If your kid is thinking about, if your kid's been contemplating suicide and a school administrator has that discussion and the school decides that you don't need to know it, to me, that's unconscionably unacceptable.
Well, there was more than that, let's not forget. Let's not forget that the Democrats rejected amendments that were brought by the Republicans that say, if my kid has been molested or a victim of sexual assault or anything like that, you got to tell me right away. And they said, no, we need the 48 hours. And you ask yourself, why would you oppose something like that?
Well, and it was even worse. If you really read the wording, what they were doing, they said it's 48 hours after the police have made some determination. Well, the police could take a day, a week, or however long, right, to make some sort of determination. So they don't even the 48 hours is a facade. And I just can't imagine, your son or daughter comes home after having a traumatic experience, possibly at the hands of a teacher, and the school doesn't feel like it needs to tell you anything.
Absolutely
unbelievable.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. We're talking with Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington about the new initiative that's being introduced to make sure that you as parents still have rights. Now, I'm old enough to remember last year, Jamie Peterson, who's the Senate Majority Leader, and Lori Jenkins, who's the Speaker of the Washington House, wrote an op-ed talking about how most of this stuff was state law anyway, and that's why they were supporting it. This was in the Seattle Times. So now they're the ones who are really pushing to get rid of this thing. I mean, I remember Jamie Peterson, 3 weeks ago, did that interview with Fox News, which basically said 13-year-olds can do whatever they want. Parents have no right to get involved in any of that. So we know what their real plan is. And as you said before, the idea was, well, let's tell the special interests or whoever that we'll just gut this thing in session this year. We'll go ahead and pass it now. But don't you think there's an aspect of they didn't really want this on the ballot because then a lot of people would show up to vote for it and then show up to vote for other initiatives as well?
100%. They were afraid that it was popular. They know this is an 80-20 issue, and they're on the wrong side of that 80-20 ratio. So you want to keep those super excited, active voters off voting. And I think it's a problem for them even now. One of the reasons we're filing this initiative is and we're doing something unique, right? Normally you don't file this until session is over. I'm filing it in the middle of session. The law hasn't passed yet. If 5181 gets dropped, great, we're happy. If 5181 goes forward, well, we're ready to move quickly. And I think we've got so many volunteers now compared to where we were, say, 2 years ago, that this is going to be a much lighter lift to go back and push back against the legislature.
To play devil's advocate for a minute, because we are the most pro-devil show on the radio. So the Democrats were thinking, okay, we're going to get away with this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pass this new legislation to gut the initiative process itself. Now that's not happening. Would you have even been able to do this if they were moving forward with something like that?
No, I think that was a real threat. The 5382, which seems like it's dead for now, but it's sort of Zombieland. It could come back. That would have it would have made it almost impossible, because it puts a real risk on signature gatherers themselves with sort of an arbitrary punishment if someone doesn't verify that you're actually a valid voter. The theory is that they could actually be punished with a $5,000 fine or 364 days in jail for certifying that your signature is correct.
Gotcha. In the last few minutes we have with Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington, so we could play this game of chicken for years. It could be, well, we're going to propose this thing and then you do this, and we're going to propose this thing and then you do that. What's to stop them from bringing this thing back again next year?
Well, the difference this time, we're filing an initiative to the people. They can't mess with it for 2 years. Whereas an initiative to the legislature, they can go in and change it right away. So but you're right. The opportunity for them to go ahead and play with it again next year, I think the danger is that at some point the people just say, wait a minute, we're sick and tired. We're sick and tired of you guys playing these games with us, and people start voting differently. And I think that would be an objective. If they can't be common sense, then we need to change the party that's been in control for 40 years. Which
I completely agree with. Now, just before we let you go, one more question on the other side of the aisle is that, look, some of these initiatives failed this year, and there's a risk of something like this failing. Do you think the Democrats are egotistical enough or arrogant enough to think, hey, let Brian Haywood do what he wants, let him waste his money, and we'll just beat him at the ballot box by throwing millions of dollars at this thing?
I hope so. I hope they're that arrogant. I think so. Because how many years? I mean, they spent $50 million last year. And yes, they have deep coffers that they can pull from. And some of it's from state money. Some of it is NGO money. But you can't do that every year. I mean, we took $50 million. One way to look at it is we took $50 million out of the deep, deep Democrat coffers last year just to fight the initiatives. Can they do that every year? If I'm spending $1 for every 10 they have to spend, that's a hard ratio for them to keep up.
Yeah, I completely agree. Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington, as always, thank you so much for fighting so hard on behalf of all of us here in Washington, especially us parents. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you, Ari. I appreciate you fighting the fight.
Oh, very kind of you to say. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Robert in Kitsap. Robert, what's going on, man?
Ari. Hey, man, I love your Washington Doge.
Thank you.
It is a fantastic thing. And, I'm kind of working in that arena also, but in a little different angle. A lot of the lobbyists that we're seeing running around and pushing all these crazy tax things, they're nonprofits.
So I'll tell you something is that
you can't do as a nonprofit.
Right. The actual Washington Doge account is not run by me. That is one of our volunteers who's running that thing, and he's doing a phenomenal job. But over there, he's actually got a whole bunch of this crony capitalism you're talking about, where a lot of these legislatures, they volunteer for this group, or they're on the commission that oversees money that goes to these groups, and then they're the ones who decide to give it out to their favorite pet projects. Have you seen those posts?
They are the governing people on it.
Exactly.
A great example of that would be Drive-By Tara Simmons, the one that put up that forgiving the firearm.
Yep. They want to lower. Let me make sure I got this right. They keep talking about a crime crisis, safety, but we're going to reduce sentencing enhancements. But we're going to reduce sentences. It makes no sense. Let's not forget Tara Simmons is the one who's the ex-con, so she's trying to help out her friends.
Yes, until she was recently fired from civil survival, she was, in the legislature helping to pass budgets to give grants to her nonprofit, Civil Survival. Who's the only salaried person at Civil Survival up until here real recently?
Exactly.
So she is basically lining her own pocket with state money while she's a legislator lining her own pocket.
Let's remember that a lot of the information Washington Doge is getting is from the Washington checkbook from their own website, which shows what they spent the money on. But the problem is we don't know exactly how it's being spent. You can go to a group's website and figure that out. But how much stuff do we not know which is hidden in random things? For example, you want to have some fun? Go to that website and just type in ABC. There's all these companies that are ABC this and ABC that. Yeah, that sounds right. I feel like I'm in the movie Boiler Room and they're making up fake companies to boost the price of stocks. ABC this, ABC that. Give me a break.
Yes, the one you highlighted, Equity in Education, is getting what, 17 million or 14 million, something like that?
Exactly. How about the tens of millions they're spending on illegal immigrants? Now, there's plenty of immigrant organizations. There's plenty of refugee organizations.
And their vice president on the board
exactly.
is a lobbyist.
Exactly. But
and
then
he states he's a lobbyist, except he has not registered as a lobbyist since 2016.
Exactly. And what we do is we go on their websites, and the ones that say they're here even for undocumented immigrants, those are the ones we're tracking a little bit closer. Robert, appreciate the kind words, appreciate the call. If you find more of this stuff, I want you to send it over to me, okay?
Yeah, Section 162. They're not acknowledging their lobbying because they actually have to report that on their 990s, and they're not doing it.
So do me a favor, Robert. Send me what you find, ari@kvi.com. Send it on over, okay? All right, we'll check it out that way. ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. Yeah, a lot of people have actually reached out to me, and I'll tell you something. Don't feel bad. I got a couple emails. This was funny. Ari, I feel so bad. I only found one thing. Guys, that's amazing. The fact that you took your time to go looking through this website, the fact that you took your time to find waste and ridiculousness. By the way, I did some digging yesterday on that other story we were talking about. So we know that King County and Seattle each gave $1 million to buy Cinerama for the Seattle International Film Festival. And we knew that they had converted this old flour mill on Harbor Island to do movie production. Do you know that King County spent $1 million doing that too? This is how government works. Don't you think it would make more sense to say, hey, guys, we'll give you tax incentives. Hey, guys, we'll give you breaks. That way you don't have to actually spend any money. Or how about you partner up and say, all right, you can have this land, or what, if you do the renovations, we won't charge you this. But no, they dropped $1 million doing it, hoping somebody's going to come make movies here. Now, I hope that the industry recovers. I hope people come back to make movies here like Sleepless in Seattle, like Singles, like Mad Love, like 10 Things I Hate About You. But at the end of the day, you got to deal with state taxes. You got to deal with county taxes. You got to deal with all that stuff, which is why a lot of people have been going to Vancouver. That's why they filmed all the WB shows up in Vancouver, because it's much, much cheaper. In the meantime, they're investing your money. Now, here's something. These are the same people who say, why should we spend money on a sports stadium? But they'll spend it with their Hollywood types to try and incentivize that. By the way, neither one of them ends up paying for itself. They never, ever do. Forbes, Wall Street Journal, sports outlets have done multiple analysis on sports teams to find out if they actually offset the money that we spend in taxes or bonds or anything. It never, ever, ever works out. So, Bruce Harrell, bad news for you, my man, because this is the guy who's hinging his entire mayoral re-election prospects on the Sonics coming back. Yeah, okay. Also, he made a bit of a boo-boo. According to My Northwest, Bruce Harrell's office is clarifying comments he made during last week's State of the Downtown event. Wait, are we talking about the Sonics again? Oh, no. He said, quote, we know that our current president surrounds himself with some of the smartest innovators around. When we drop names like Andreessen or Peter Thiel, David Sachs, or Elon Musk, these are smart innovators. Oh, how dare you call Elon Musk smart? That's what they're mad at him about, by the way. He was literally calling out Donald Trump for working with Elon Musk, but the left is never satisfied. They're so rabid. So now he's trying to walk back the comments because he called Elon Musk smart. Hey, the guy who did SpaceX and Tesla, he's pretty smart. You may disagree with him politically. Look, I can call people smart. Bob Ferguson, very smart guy, very sharp guy. Evil genius, but very smart. Very sharp. See, do I have to apologize that? Do I have to walk that back? No, of course not. That's absolutely insane. Look, Brucey, you got bigger problems. You got problems about the amount of crime around here that you keep saying is getting better. It's getting better. It's getting better. Do you know Seattle went from 4 homicides in the first 2 months of 2025 to 3 more homicide investigations in just a week, according to Future 42? 2 of them are in North Seattle, including this one that we hear about from Fox 13.
Developing news for you this morning where crews are responding to a deadly encampment fire in Seattle. Fox 13's Nikki Torres live at the scene. Nikki, what is going on?
Well, Taylor, the investigation on scene is still ongoing. As of this morning, you have SPD and Seattle Fire out here continuing with this investigation. Just take a look. This is the encampment, and this is, again, in the Bitter Lake neighborhood, just off of Stone Avenue North and North 135th Street here in Seattle. This is actually just behind an LA Fitness, so it's a bit of a commercial road here when you're looking at it. Crews say that they were responding to a 911 call initially for a tent fire, and that is when they found a person who was dead. So just looking at this encampment, there are at least a dozen tents here. Again, Seattle Fire and SPD are still investigating. This could last for several hours. So for now, they are just asking for people to avoid this area. We do know that Seattle Police is sending out their public information officer, so we're hoping to get more info here in just a bit. And as soon as we get that, we'll bring it to you here on Good Day Seattle. For right now, we're live in North Seattle. I'm Nikki Torres, Fox 13 News. Back to you guys.
Murders and homeless encampments again. Do you not remember that when we hit our record homicide rate 2 years ago, that the vast majority of them were the ones that were right near or inside homeless encampments? Bruce, you want to keep those numbers down, you might want to do something about the homeless encampment problem. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Rob in Anacortes. Rob, what's going on, man?
Was that a rerun? A repeat? Because I swear to God, I heard that exact same newscast. I thought you were playing a rerun.
No, sir. That is new, my friend. That is new.
Word.
It's like all the stories. It's like all the stories we do about the people ramming cars into pot shops. I feel like a broken record. No, that is not. That is an identical one of stories we've done before, my friend.
Ari, it's the same old new.
What's old is new again, you might say.
Well, you have heard. I don't know. Maybe you weren't listening to the radio. I'm trying to think. It was Friday or today's Tuesday. I don't think it was yesterday, but it seems like it was just a day or two ago. I was driving along, and they said that Washington was voted the best state in the country for business. I thought it was a joke, but they were actually serious. I'm serious. That was a newscast.
You weren't listening to our station, I'll tell you that, my friend. So now I'm going to yell at you for that one. But here's the thing, my friend. I'll tell you this. Yes, I'm sure the people in Kirkland feel the same way when Intrex announced that it's moving out because of the homeless shelter going in across the street from them that's being set up by King County. Sounds like a great place for business, right?
Well, I'd like to know, they didn't go into the details. They didn't say how, what, I don't know, what conglomeration had voted that. Maybe it was just the people within the communists within our own state that decided to go ahead and vote that.
Oh, it's the best place to do government business and get the government money. Oh, that's what they're saying. No, you know what this is? These studies, we always say before we quote any of them, take it with a grain of salt from Wallet Hub or whoever, because they don't know the facts on the ground, right? We always laugh at those. It's like when somebody puts up clickbait for me and Mike and Mr. KVI. When they put up clickbait and says, best superhero movies of all time, and we go, all right, let's see your stupid list. And it's done to piss us off. And we always say, who wrote this stupidity? Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's clickbait, Rob.
I have one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
And I hope you won't get pissed off. I mean, I listen to you almost every single day, and you're right on.
Thank
you. I can't think of anybody else that, outside of Rush Limbaugh, and of course he's passed away too, but Dory Monson was the advocate for Washington State. And I don't know we have anybody that's even, yourself, but I mean, Dory was, man, that guy was, he was pulling stuff out of the cobwebs.
Well, you know what?
And people hated him.
I'll tell you this, is that I am lucky enough to have listeners like you. You know why? Because, look, I was a listener of Dory's, and I remember giving Dory stories that I would find, and nowadays I get a lot of stories from the ones that our listeners find, and people send them over to me. And I'll tell you guys, when something's going wrong, if you have a problem, if nobody else can help, and if you listen 3 hours a day, the Ari Hoffman Show, you too can be a member of the A-Team, literally the A-Team, right? And you can help us out by giving us the stories. We get our best leads from our listeners, and that's how we get all the good local stuff. So appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including the Trump administration is taking on Columbia University and a whole bunch of other colleges. Can't wait for UW to make that list. We'll tell you what's happening when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Early this morning, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, does he get to say they'll be expelled? No. But they do control federal funding. And if you send a loud enough message, schools will say, we don't want this as a liability. As somebody who helped start a few schools, who helped run a few schools, I can tell you that sometimes you have discussions about specific students. And we go, do we think we can help this kid? Or is this kid just a walking liability for us? The goal here is to make it hurt when you don't actually enforce the law. So now, according to the New York Post, the Trump administration threatened Monday to pull more than $50 million in government contracts it has with Columbia University, pointing to the Ivy League school's alleged inaction to get a handle on anti-Israel protests that have targeted Jewish students. My friends, this isn't just about targeting Jewish students. It's about targeting anybody who they disagree with. So, for example, young Zach was at Columbia last year, and he was telling us the nightmare it was to get on campus to visit relatives because of the psychopaths. I have friends, kids that go to Columbia University. The stories they have told me are absolutely mind-boggling and insane. Getting assaulted, getting spit on, getting harassed, having their hair pulled, death threats, you name it. Their kids going to college. Their kids going to college. That's what's going on. Federal officials announced they were considering placing stop work orders on $51.4 million worth of contracts and reviewing more than $5 billion in federal grant commitments tied to the Big Apple University to ensure the rights of Jewish students are being met. By the way, not just the Jewish students, not just the students. Do you not forget that last year in one of the buildings, they held the janitorial staff hostage? They kept them in the building and wouldn't let them go. Wow, Hamasniks have truly become Hamas. They just kept them imprisoned inside a building. Oh, a building's nicer than tunnels, I guess. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said in a statement, anti-Semitism, like racism, is a spiritual and moral malady that sickens society and kills people with lethalities comparable to history's most deadly plagues. The looming warning to the school is part of an ongoing investigation into possible civil rights violations and comes after President Donald Trump formed the task force to combat anti-Semitism when he got into office in January to fight against the vile hate being carried out on college campuses. Newly minted Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said in a statement Monday that since the start of the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, Americans have watched in horror as Jewish students have been assaulted and harassed at elite colleges. Quote, unlawful encampments and demonstrations have completely paralyzed day-to-day campus operations, depriving Jewish students of learning opportunities to which they are entitled. Once again, not just the Jewish students. Are you able to learn when outside your house you hear, whose streets are streets? Outside your classroom, outside your dorm room, outside whatever's going on, you're hearing that nonsense going on? I remember at my college, SEIU one time went on strike. They were mad about, I don't know, their wages or something. And they were out there all day chanting. You know how hard it was to listen to what the professor was saying? You know how hard it was to concentrate on studying when that nonsense was going on? Especially when they had cowbells. Nobody was saying more cowbell. Nobody was. Columbia said it was reviewing the federal government's message and hoped to work with the White House to fight anti-Semitism. Quote, Columbia is fully committed to combating anti-Semitism and all forms of discrimination. We are resolute that calling for, promoting, or glorifying violence or terror has no place at our university. The school stated on Monday night, really, then how come you just allowed it last week? Literally last week, you just allowed it. And yeah, I'm just asking the question. You let it happen at Barnard. Columbia has been the center of abhorrent demonstrations, according to the New York Post, in opposition to Israel since Hamas' October 7th, 2023 attack on the Jewish state that erupted in a wider conflict. Protesters camped out on the campus green and even occupied a school building last spring, both times requiring NYPD action, just like again this week. Mass students also stormed a Columbia class on modern Israel, tossed around hateful leaflets in January. At least 2 Barnard students were expelled following the disruption. Then, the co-founder of Columbia's Jewish Alumni Association told the Post that Columbia hasn't done enough to discipline student protesters who have been upending the campus life for Jewish pupils. He says now the government is showing Colombia they mean business. The only question is if Colombia's leaders will finally take action or make matters worse by ignoring the discrimination. Now, here's something else to think about, by the way. You know that the 9/11 terrorists, some of them were here on student visas. So how many of these people are here on student visas that are terrorists for other countries or terrorists in training for other countries or hate America? Coming here to learn is a privilege. I don't know how many times I need to say it. It is a privilege, not a right. You don't deserve a student visa. You earn a student visa. And if you are tormenting other kids on campus, Jewish or not, you shouldn't get the benefits of an American education, especially at our elite colleges. When we come back, lots more fiscal irresponsibility, not just with the national budget, but with Washington's budget. And a school district is specifically being targeted by the Trump administration right here in Washington. And we agree with the Trump administration. We'll tell you why when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Like many people, I was not actually watching the football game during the Super Bowl. I was focused on the commercials, and one in particular caught my attention. And it wasn't about a new movie. It wasn't about some new kind of food. It was about Washington's budget. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, president of Enterprise Washington, Paul Graves. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on, Ari.
Such a pleasure. So tell me, you guys ran this ad during the Super Bowl. What was the goal of this?
Try to help educate the public on Washington State's budget. It's a big year. There's a budget. It's got to be passed in Olympia this year, and public officials have been talking about a budget crisis and about a budget deficit somewhere from $4 to $15 billion, depending on who you ask. And we want to make sure that the public has the facts and the information about the budget, about the recent increases in the budget and taxes, and what it all means for their pocketbooks.
So tell us a little bit more about what you guys do personally, because I'm looking for people who give me numbers. You know, we talk to friends at other think tanks and such, and they give us numbers and they tell us what's going on. You got a whole website here which is talking about the budget, but the Democrats can't seem to tell us if the budget is 12, 15, 16, 17 billion dollars. I assume you guys have looked into this a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's hard because that this is part of where it can be confusing and why we thought that a public education campaign would be useful. And you're right, we do have a website, budgetbreakdown.org, and it's pretty the website there is pretty straightforward. We've got sources. Most of them are the government's numbers themselves, things from the governor's Office of Financial Management, the governor's main budget person, from the Forecast Revenue Council and stuff like that. And a big part of where you get this gap between what the number of the deficit might be has to do with projected spending. We do budgeting every 2 years, but we've also got a law that requires us to do 4 years out how much spending and taxes are going to be. And of course, when you're budgeting out 4 years, so much depends on what programs you're actually going to put into place and what spending you're actually going to do. And so decisions that happen now can affect those things, and that's why you see such a big difference between what the shortfall might be.
We're talking to Paul Graves. He's the president of Enterprise Washington. They have this new website, budgetbreakdown.org, that you may have seen a commercial for during the Super Bowl. Now, we know a lot of people locally are inspired by the example of Doge out in Washington, D.C., so they've kind of done their own version of that here in Washington State. They've done it in California and other places. Are you guys looking into the waste, or you guys are just looking at, hey, here's what they're spending, and here's what they're spending it on, and you guys should be aware of this?
This is a public education campaign, but of course we're also educating the public on where the spending is going and then what particular outcomes you get from it. Most of the time when you spend money, you want to know the thing that you're getting for it. And so we're certainly doing quite a bit of education on increased spending over the last 4 years. The state has increased its spending by about 40%. Tax revenues up 25% in that time. And that's how you can get that shortfall. But we've got worse outcomes for education, for behavioral health, for homelessness. All the things that you want to spend that money to improve are going the wrong direction. So accountability and outcomes is absolutely a part of helping to educate the public on the state budget.
We are talking with Paul Graves. He's the president of Enterprise Washington, talking about fiscal accountability, fiscal responsibility of our own lawmakers. Now, just to play devil's advocate for a second, because we are the most pro-devil show on the radio, is there any good news looking at this budget? Is there anything here that we go, oh, yeah, we spent money on this and it actually got better? Or is it so overwhelmingly bad news, as you just described, that the good news doesn't even make much of a dent?
Well, the positive thing you could say is that, we mentioned projecting out 2 and 4 years. The state's going to have $10 billion more than it had the last time it did the budget. Normally, you would think that would be a good thing for the state itself, that if you get $10 billion more without having to increase taxes just because the economy has been strong, then it makes the budgeting process easier. Of course, again, over the last 4 years, spending has increased 40%, and that's how you can get that shortfall. But I guess, what the positive thing you could say is that you've got you've got additional revenue, you've got more money to spend on the state's priorities. And we just, again, want to make sure the public knows about this, because it can be hard to kind of track all these government numbers and the government budget and where the taxes are all going and everything like that. I got to be clear, we're not actually taking any particular position on any spending or taxing proposal or anything like that. But that's one thing you could probably say is pretty positive, is that if the state did nothing and raised no taxes and didn't do anything else, they got $10 billion more than they did last time. Normally if you're looking at your priorities and you got $10 billion more than you did last time in like a $80 billion budget, you probably would consider that to be a good thing.
So, Paul, just before we let you go, I'm a little confused here all of a sudden. We have people in our government who are telling us we have this massive billion-dollar budget shortfall, $12 billion, $15 billion, $17 billion. You're telling me we are going to have a $10 billion excess? So where's the discrepancy there between the two?
Oh, the $10 billion isn't excess. That's just more money that's coming in from last time. But the reason why you can get a shortfall is if you're planning to spend way, way more than that. That's where you get the shortfall.
Exactly. That's the point we've been hammering home time and time again. Paul Graves, why don't you give us that website one more time for our listeners so they can go check it out for themselves, especially all our friends who are really enjoying being part of Doge Washington.
Absolutely. It's budgetbreakdown.org. Again, we got everything sourced there. Most of it comes from the government itself. You can go in and read the reports yourself and decide for yourself.
Also, you can see their Super Bowl ads, which I think are amazing because, look, they got my attention. They got a lot of other people's attention because I can't tell you how many people said, Ari, what do you know about this organization? Who are these guys? You got to have them on the show. Check out their website. That's budgetbreakdown.org. Paul Graves, really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, including how Washington is trying to secure your vote. Wait, the Republicans in Washington, those Republicans? We'll give you the details on what they're doing when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. A lot of discussion right now about illegal immigrants. Are they being deported? Who's being deported? But something else is, are they voting? Now, we know there are gaps in Washington's system. We know that there have been cases of them voting, getting caught, and then not getting prosecuted, and nobody doing anything about it. Doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything to actually clean up the voter rolls. However, there may be a new effort underway. Joining us now to discuss, Chairman of the Washington State GOP and Representative in the Washington State Legislature, Jim Walsh. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Great to talk to you, Ari. I'm literally in the wings off the floor of the House in Olympia. We're taking a break for a few minutes, so I've got a minute to chat.
Awesome. So we can keep it quiet so the Democrats don't hear what we're scheming.
I don't hide many cards, Ari. They know exactly what's coming.
Exactly. We're not exactly people who, fly under the radar, are we? Maybe that's why we're such good friends at this point. So tell me what you're up to, because this is something that caught my radar right away, and I said I have to have Representative Walsh on the show about it.
Well, I filed what's called a House Joint Memorial, which is kind of like a resolution. And what it does is it calls on the White House, the Trump administration, and the U.S. Department of Justice, so the Attorney General, to look at Washington, particularly look at our voter registration processes and what we call the automatic voter registration, also known as motor voter law. Mm-hmm. It is not being implemented in a secure way. That means people are getting registered to vote who aren't citizens or aren't able to vote legally. And we want to make sure that the federal government has a look at it, because the slipshod implementation of this program is a violation of the federal Constitution and the Federal Voting Rights Act.
Right. And this is something we've discussed before, where you're automatically registered to vote. I've gone through many times how my son was able to register to vote without providing any information whatsoever. And the kid's a citizen, but at the same time, he didn't have to do that. And we have had cases of people getting caught doing this. Now, we haven't seen it being done widespread. At least we haven't seen that. Nothing's been provided yet that that's what's happening. But we don't know, because we haven't been able to check out so much of this stuff. So the question is, do you think Nick Brown, who's right now suing the Trump administration for anything, is actually going to do anything about this? Or do we need a new U.S. attorney in our area, which hasn't been appointed yet?
Yeah, we need the federal authorities to step in here. The state attorney general, the governor, the secretary of state, the state secretary of state's office, and the State Department of Licensing are the state agencies most involved in this voter registration screw up. They aren't doing anything. They're pointing fingers at each other. It's my belief that it's the State Department of Licensing that's primarily responsible for the unchecked, unsecure implementation of Motor Voter Act. But they all have a role to play. The Secretary of State's office ought to be doing something to put some sort of checks and balances, some sort of quality control on who's getting registered to vote. They aren't. The state, you figure the state attorney general would be interested. He's not, and the governor is just turning a blind eye to it. So no one is doing the due diligence to make sure that the people who are automatically registered to vote are actually citizens and legal to vote.
Let's give an example, a real-life example of something that happened. Now, there was a guy who was deported by ICE. He was listed on their website yesterday, or I believe it was the day before, from Guatemala, a sex offender who failed to register as a sex offender, and he was able to register a white panel van in Seattle. You cannot make this up if you tried. My bet is this guy was probably also registered to vote through our laws.
Right. The Motor Voter Act automatically registers you to vote when you get a driver's license or renew a driver's license, register a vehicle, or get certain state government benefits. You're automatically registered to vote unless you affirmatively say no when you're signing up for the driver's license or the ID card or whatever it might be. So if someone doesn't affirmatively say no, don't register me to vote, they are automatically registered. And there's no safeguard. There's no due diligence. Nobody checks if the individual is a citizen. And, we ask the Department of Licensing, do you check? Do you do any kind of due diligence? They kind of point the finger at the state secretary of state's office. We ask them, do you do anything to make sure that people registered to vote through Motor Voter are legal citizens? They point back at Department of License. Everybody's pointing fingers. These bureaucrats are all pointing fingers. No one is taking responsibility. That's why we need the federal government to come in and investigate this and audit it and figure out what's going on.
Unfortunately, this doesn't surprise me at all, but you know what? I think you and I should have some fun together. I think we should get the name of that guy from Guatemala and ask Steve Hobbs if he's on the voter rolls, because if he is, that is your new poster child for explaining why this is a massive, massive problem. Chairman of the Washington State GOP, representative from Aberdeen, the one and only Jim Walsh, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Great to talk to you. Have a good week. It's a little rainy, but we're soldiering through here in Olympia.
Yes, I hope to see you guys later in the week, as a matter of fact. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Don't forget, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, but also today, bonus chance to win. You can go to KVI.com right now for your chance to win four tickets to the Seattle RV Show. The 61st annual Seattle RV Show is rolling into Lumen Field Event Center from March 6th to 9th. That's this weekend, my friends. You'll find expert advice, special discounts, even free camping offers with select RV purchases. Head on over to the contest page at KVI.com right now for your chance to win tickets to the Seattle RV Show. Don't forget to stop by the KVI booth and say hi, because there's a good chance you might get to see Mike on Sunday. We'll see if he'll be down there. We'll check it out. Anyway, head on over to KVI.com, go to the contest page for your chance to win 4 tickets to the Seattle RV Show.
Well, yeah, and regardless, stop by the booth and grab some swag. We'll have like stickers and flags and all the usual fun stuff.
Yeah, lots of free stuff to get there. So might as well deck out your whole vehicle
there
with
it is.
KVI gear. Slap it all over there. I got one of those KVI yard signs right there in front of my house. Wait a minute. Did I just put like a giant bullseye on? No, I'm just kidding. Come get one of those signs. Come get all the other fun stuff we have and meet Mike. So, State of the Union, they're prepping for it right now. I love the State of the Union. I love the drama. I love all the fun of the State of the Union. I love the protesters outside. I love all of it. I really do. I enjoy the State of the Union. But here's the thing. What's Donald Trump actually going to talk about? Now, we criticized Joe Biden very, very heavily, and we said, list your wins. What are your wins? Now, Joe Biden was never able to do that. He was talking about piers in Gaza. Remember that? He said he's going to have a pier in Gaza where he's going to get all this aid to the people of Gaza. It was all stolen by Hamas. You had people killed because of that pier. It was a hundreds of millions of dollar boondoggle. You can never find any Joe Biden wins. You couldn't. The economy, anything else? So let's talk about Donald Trump for a minute. What are Donald Trump's wins to this point? And if you can name some that I forget, you give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Let's start with the border. There is no doubt, by any stretch of the imagination, there is no way you can say things aren't better with the border crisis. You have a 94% reduction in illegal border crossers coming across. That's huge. That is really, really huge. Wait a minute. Didn't Joe Biden and Cruz say we needed legislation in order to do that? Doesn't look like you did. You put the right people in charge. You tell them to stop it. And all of a sudden, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, all of a sudden, the border is shut down. And they didn't even finish the border wall yet. Think about that for a second. Not even done. And they already reduced illegal border crossings by 94%. The economy. I know Donald Trump says he's going to fix it overnight and such, but that takes a little bit more time. Let's talk about it. Inflation is lower than it was when Joe Biden was in office. It's still high. It's going to take a while to come down. Are there economic wins? 100%. For example, hundreds of billions of dollars. In fact, I think we're at $1.3 trillion of foreign investments since Donald Trump was elected president, not even since when he got sworn into office. You're talking about a huge amount of money, plus you're talking about, because of the threat of tariffs, companies are talking about manufacturing in the U.S. You have the Taiwanese chip company. You have Honda talking about making the new Civic here. You have Stellantis bringing back the Jeeps, bringing back the Dodges to the United States. This is all good stuff. But tariffs are a double-edged sword. Let's go through the pro-cons of these for a second. Tariffs as a stick to a carrot are very effective. If you don't do what we want, we're going to hit you with tariffs. 100% true. Also, tariffs saying, hey, we want to be on a level playing field, and you guys are taxing all our stuff, so we want you to bring it down. Very effective that way. However, tariffs are also something that Democrats have been pushing for a long, long time. Democrats love tariffs because what it does is it brings more business to American business, and we can have a free trade debate. We can have that 100%. But the question is, if they're being used as leverage, what's the end goal? So a month ago, we were in the same place we are right now with tariffs. We said to China, we said to Mexico, we said to Canada, stop flooding our country with illegal immigrants, stop flooding our country with fentanyl. China did absolutely nothing. Canada said we're going to send troops to the border. Mexico said we're going to send troops to the border, but we're hitting them with tariffs. Now, is that because they tax our products? Yeah, that's part of it. But at the same time, they haven't fully cut off the flow of fentanyl. They haven't fully cut off the flow of illegal immigrants, and we are still dealing with that. Now, the problem with tariffs is that if you're using them as leverage and the guys on the other side decide to hit you with tariffs, now you're in a trade war. And that means things are expensive for everybody. Is Donald Trump tonight going to explain the tariffs and what he hopes that they are going to accomplish? Is he going to say, hey, we just made a deal with Trudeau and we just made a deal with Mexico, just like we made a deal with Zelenskyy? Is that what's going to happen tonight? I have questions about that. Because right now, Trudeau is actually using this to stay prime minister. Let's not forget. The guy announced that he wasn't going to be prime minister anymore, but he sees his approval rating ticking up for combating Donald Trump. So he's going to ride this train as long as he possibly can. Here's what he said today when he hit the U.S. with tariffs in response.
Thanks. Hi, Prime Minister Rachel Haynes from CTV National News. As we know, the Liberal Party is going to be picking a new leader over the weekend. But when is it going to be your last official day as Prime Minister?
That will be up to a conversation between the new leader and myself to figure out how long a transition is needed. It should happen reasonably quickly, but there's a lot of things to do in a transition like this, particularly at this complicated time in the world.
Oh, you mean he's going to try and stay in office as long as possible? Yeah, well, we know why that is, because right now he's actually in front of a video camera and he sees this as an opportunity to try and redeem his political career, which was in the toilet.
Hi, Mr. Judah. Mackenzie Gray with Global. You mentioned the markets earlier. Someone who knows a thing about them, Warren Buffett, came out and said that these tariffs could be viewed as an act of war. Does the Canadian government believe these tariffs from Donald Trump is an act of war from the U.S.?
Canadians are not angry at the American people for this. We don't have anything against Americans. Americans are our neighbors, our friends.
Then why are you booing our national anthem?
Our partners. We do things together. We've done things together.
Then why do you people keep saying you're going to boycott coming to our country?
For decades and generations.
Why'd you burn the White House?
This is a policy decision by the American government designed to go after the Canadian economy.
You mean like policy decisions to flood our country with illegal immigrants because you didn't want them in yours and flood our country with fentanyl?
This is a trade war, yes.
You mean because you guys also charge us tariffs?
But Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry. We're going to choose to not go on vacation in Florida or Old Orchard Beach or wherever. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products.
Do you hear his hesitation, how long it's taking him to actually come up with things? How about Chevrolet? We're not going to buy cars. Are there any Canadian car manufacturers? Anybody? I don't know of any offhand. I can't think of any. I don't know about the Canadian car auto industry. Yeah, we're gonna not have bourbon anymore. No more bourbon. Bourbon's bad. Okay, just making sure I got that. Ron DeSantis. Oh, Ron DeSantis. This is what he said in response to Trudeau's stupidity.
Flock to our state and investment to Florida surge. We continue to set tourism records. 2024 saw more than 142 million visitors come to the state of Florida. This includes 3.3 million visitors from Canada. That's not much of a boycott in my book. Maybe they wanted to get a glimpse of what a Stanley Cup winning hockey team actually looks like.
I don't even like hockey, and I love that guy. That was hysterical. So the problem is it's uniting the Canadian government and it's making Trudeau look good. You're about to be rid of Trudeau, but now even Pierre Poilievre, who is his opposition, is siding with Trudeau.
At 12:01 a.m., President Trump stabbed America's best friend in the back. My message to the president is this: Canada will fight back. We will defend our people and our economy, and we will put Canada first. There's no doubt that our economy will suffer, but so will yours, President Trump. In fact, you're already paying the price, with trillions of dollars erased in stock market value over the last month of these threats. Already Americans are paying higher gas prices, as at midnight, a new American gas tax kicked in on U.S. working class taxpayers and motorists. Your workers will soon start losing jobs they had upgrading Canadian raw materials, which, by the way, you were getting at an incredible and ridiculous bargain. And your businesses will be selling fewer products to your closest neighbor. And that's only the beginning. While Canadians are slow to anger and quick to forgive, once provoked, we fight back. And we will fight back.
So now you have a problem. You've got the opposition and the party in power agreeing to go head-to-head with the U.S. I think everybody's forgetting just because they call themselves conservatives, it doesn't mean they're our kind of conservatives. So the question is, what's the way out? And I look forward to hearing Donald Trump explaining what his endgame is here and if there's going to be a solution. Look, I never second-guessed Donald Trump because a lot of people said, oh, that's it. We're going to be in World War III. Zelenskyy left the White House. But what happened? Zelenskyy today caved. Donald Trump said he was going to withhold aid, withhold military support. Zelenskyy caved, and now it looks like we're going to have that mineral deal signed before the State of the Union. Now, I'm not holding my breath because that thing has been supposed to be signed 3 times beforehand. Are we actually going to get it signed now? I'm curious about that. So let's talk about the tariffs tonight. I want to hear him explain that. Now, the thing that everybody's looking forward to is hearing about Doge. Doge has taken the country by storm. It's spawned copycats like here in Washington, like in California, in New York. I think at this point, most states have their own version of Doge copycats that are fighting the waste in their state government. It's amazing. Now, you have to bring down your spending if you want to fix the economy. And as I have said before, even if they've cut $100 billion of spending so far, look, remember that the U.S. aid itself is only 1% of the U.S. federal budget. You're going to have to start getting into real things right now. We're going to have to start slicing and dicing those. Donald Trump gets to crow about the win with Ukraine if we actually have a win with Ukraine, and he gets to crow about the border security. Now, apparently, the Republicans are going to be passing out little American flags for them to wave at different points in the speech. Of course, that's fun. That's exciting. We love that kind of stuff, but it's part of the theatrics. The Democrats, however, have a different problem. They have no response. They have no response whatsoever. And then I saw this article from the playbook from Politico. This is not in my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. Politico is most definitely in the left little red Marxist book, especially since we found out how much money they get from the federal government. Here's what they wrote here. They said, as President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and their Republican allies were remaking the world order, Democrats were busy face-planting on social media. On Friday, the DNC's X account posted a 32-point list of what Democrats did in February, seemingly mimicking Elon Musk's 5 things email tactic. It included such relatively small-bore items as Democrat Ken Jennings won a special election for Westchester County executive, soundly defeating his Trump-backed opponent. Woohoo, bravo. You guys lost the big election. By yesterday afternoon, the post had been so roundly mocked and ratioed that DNC Chief Marketing Officer Shelby Cole felt compelled to respond that the template always used to bang for us before conceding the internet thinks we are morons this time. As focus turns to this week to Trump's first joint address to Congress on Tuesday and Democrats' response, the episode was an apt encapsulation of the larger moment unfolding in Washington. If Trump's first term energized the party's progressives, there are early signs his second term is doing the same for Democratic moderates. For starters, the party chose the battleground state moderate Senator Elisa Slotkin of Michigan to deliver its response to Trump. She outperformed former VP Kamala Harris by more than a full percentage point in all but 28 of the state's 83 counties, according to the Detroit News analysis. There are other indications the party's most immediate answers might come from its moderate wing. So right away, Democrats who are smart are recognizing they have to go more moderate. But most Democrats aren't doing that. They are doubling down on crazy. They are doubling down on insane. They are doubling down on the lefty insanity. And now, tonight, Axios has a report out that they're talking about bringing noisemakers, and they're planning on being disruptive and making a show of it. Look, we criticized Marjorie Taylor Greene when she did that multiple times because it didn't look that great for us. If the Democrats keep doing this kind of stuff, they're going to keep losing elections, but they don't know what else to do. All they can do is hammer Trump for the economy. But the problem is with that, they're the ones who created a bad economy, which Trump inherited, and he's trying to fix. If it doesn't get better, eventually Americans' patience is going to wear thin. But when he keeps announcing investment after investment after investment, and the inflation rate keeps going down, the question is what tariffs are going to do that, especially with the stock market continuing to tank and mutual funds going along with it. So a lot of people who aren't in the stock market have mutual funds that are supposed to pay for their kids' college and stuff. As long as those keep going down, the average American is going to say, okay, when is he going to fix things for us? All the Democrats have is banging on him for the economy, but that'll boomerang right back at them when we say, you guys made this mess and now we have to clean it up. Tonight is going to be fun to watch. 100% it is. And you get the best Donald Trump at the State of the Union. The Donald Trump you get at the State of the Union is the one who's the guy who we always want up there, who he's been his entire presidency this time around. I love watching him at State of the Union. That is the man I am proudly voting for every single time I can, but I think I'm done doing that. But here's the thing, my friends. The question is, how disruptive are the Democrats going to be? Are they going to look like children? Look, if you don't stand up and applaud, that's expected. But if you start waving things and throwing things and making a spectacle, Democrats or Republicans look stupid doing that. What are we going to see tonight? I want your predictions. I want your predictions what Donald Trump's going to talk about and the wins I might have missed. You give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, not everybody's happy with what Donald Trump's doing, especially our friends over on the left here in Seattle. Now the Seattle City Attorney has joined the lawsuit to try and keep Seattle a sanctuary city. We'll discuss that. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Don't forget, coming up at 5:45 is your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus more. And also, go to KVI.com for your chance to win four tickets to the Seattle RV Show. Head on over to the contest page at KVI.com for your chance to win. Well, Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson announced yesterday that Seattle is going to be joining the lawsuit against the Trump administration, so that way we don't lose federal funding for not cooperating with ICE and such. Is it really that hard for our local jurisdictions, our law enforcement officers to say, we arrested this guy, he's an illegal immigrant, come pick him up? Or do you want to keep releasing him? Let's be clear what this is about. Seattle is petrified of losing federal funding. By the way, the Seattle Times, they've really outdone themselves. They keep printing day after day stories like this one that just came to my inbox. I still get their emails, even though I've tried to take myself off the list. Seattle may see federal buildings sold by the Trump administration. I go, I already voted for the guy. You don't have to convince me. So wait a second. Hang on. I want to make sure I got this right. The federal building in downtown Seattle, which the lunatics protest outside of and vandalize outside of and block traffic in front of, we might sell that? Oh, darn. Oh, phooey. Where's Antifa going to go now? Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm clutching my pearls. Oh, be still my heart. Hang on. I'm crying into my cornflakes here. This is very, very, so sad. So sad. Yeah. How many federal buildings do we have in Seattle? You guys wrote federal buildings. How many federal buildings do we have here? Oh, and by the way, hey, if you're not working with local ICE agents, then you know what? You guys don't need those buildings anyway. How many of them are sitting empty? How many federal workers don't show up to work? I have many questions about all this, but you guys aren't doing a good job of convincing me that this is a bad thing. On Monday, Seattle City Attorney Ann Davidson called the Trump administration's threats to withhold funding from cities with sanctuary laws an example of federal overreach. If you guys just keep the law, uphold the law, we won't have any problems. Hang on a second. Who are the kinds of people that they don't want to get rid of here, that they don't want to inform ICE about? According to the Post-Millennial, ICE Seattle arrested an illegal immigrant with an extensive criminal history, including kidnapping, assault, and burglary. Wow. This guy sounds like a guy who picks crops, to quote Pramila Jayapal, right? Oh, this is a guy who definitely came here for a better life, right? Alonzo Lopez Mundo, 27, of Mexico, was taken into custody on February 28th in Burlington, Washington. He was previously deported from the United States, unlawfully returned on an unknown date. ICE Enforcement Removal Operation Seattle announced his apprehension in an ex-post on Monday. U.S. Border Patrol Blaine sector agents assisted with the operation. Court records show that Lopez Mundo was most recently apprehended in Skagit County on September 4th. He faces several felony charges, including theft, malicious mischief, and criminal impersonation related to the case. Authorities released Lopez Mundo from Skagit County Jail without notifying ICE, despite his unlawful immigration status and prior felony convictions. Oh, I get it. Washington, Seattle, King County, Skagit County, none of them want anybody in jail. Doesn't matter how horrific your crime is, they will just reduce your sentence and reduce your sentence and reduce your sentence, or just let you go. On December 11, 2019, Lopez Mundo was convicted of unlawful imprisonment, a.k.a. kidnapping, and assault causing substantial pain in Whatcom County Superior Court. Both are felony charges, and he was sentenced to 6 months in jail. Lopez Mundo was deported from the United States following his release from custody, according to court records. Additional court filings show that Lopez Mundo was issued a Washington state driver's license upon his unlawful return to the United States. Wait a minute. What happens when you get a driver's license here in Washington? Aren't you automatically registered to vote? So you're telling me that the kidnapper didn't just get a driver's license, but he also was registered to vote? ICE Seattle has apprehended a significant number of illegal immigrants in Washington state since the Trump administration initiated nationwide deportation operations on January 20th. An El Salvadoran hitman who is sought in his homeland for kidnapping and homicide was apprehended on February 11th. Additionally, the agency has apprehended numerous illegal immigrants who have been convicted and charged with severe offenses, such as child rape, sexual battery, assault with sexual motivation, assault with deadly weapon, illicit drug manufacturing, and attempted murder. Many of those who were apprehended were previously deported from the United States and are set to be removed from the country pending proceedings. Records show that the majority of recent illegal alien arrestees obtained Washington state driver's licenses. So what you're saying is that all these guys might be registered to vote here in Washington? This sounds like we should have some fun with the Secretary of State's office and maybe start filing public disclosure requests to say, how many of these guys, we should just start taking their names and finding out which elections they got ballots for, which elections they voted in. I'd be very, very curious to find out that information because this is absolutely insane. We literally spoke yesterday about a Guatemalan who had sex offender status. He was supposed to register as a sex offender because he had a history of being a sex offender. And instead, what did he do? He was able to register a white panel van in Washington. I'm going to keep banging this dead horse today because a sex offender was able to register a white panel van in Washington, which means he was likely automatically registered to vote, which is bonkers crazy when you think about it. How many of these other guys were registered to vote? I think tonight, while watching the State of the Union, I'm definitely going to have to start filing some public disclosure requests for voting records of these people and find out exactly how many of them were registered to vote. This is who Seattle wants to keep in town. Look, Ann Davidson is running for re-election, and let's be real about this for a second. The only challenger she's going to get, she's not going to get anybody from the right. She's going to get some far-left psycho-socialist. And she needs to have her Democrat status cemented. So by fighting the Trump administration, it's an easy way to go. In addition to that, losing federal funding is no good. Do you know your easy solution to all this? Just enforce the law. Then you won't lose federal funding. And you can actually explain it to people. But the far lefties here in Seattle that keep voting for stupidity are going to say, no, you're a Trumper, even though Ann Davidson used to be a Democrat. No, you're a Republican. No, we want you gone. Let's replace her with the lefty psycho-socialist. Do you not remember how close her race was last time? Her race was ridiculously close with Nicole Thomas Kennedy, the woman who was a member of Antifa, the woman who said that she wanted to make it a priority to set up staging area between Seattle and Portland for Antifa? Do you remember this nonsense, this lunatic? She didn't want to enforce any laws. That's the kind of challenger Ann Davidson is going to draw, and she's worried about getting challenged from the left, so she has no problem going along with this. I am not a fan of this move. I will tell you that. I will, however, reach out to her office and ask her why she's doing this, because it compromises public safety. We really don't want any more Angel families. We really don't want any more Laken Rileys. We don't want that to happen here in Washington. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Trump's Department of Education is going after a local school district. We'll tell you what they did wrong when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder that we have a bonus contest going on today. It's your last chance to try and win 4 tickets to the Seattle RV Show. Head on over to KVI.com, go to the contest page, and enter for your chance to win. It is coming up this weekend, March 6th through 9th. Don't forget to swing by the KVI booth, say hi to Mike, and grab some KVI gear while you're there. We got stickers and other good things that are going to be down there. So make sure to hang out at the Seattle RV Show this weekend, March 6th through 9th. So we found out late last night that the U.S. Department of Education opened a Title IX investigation into the Tumwater School District right here in Washington after a girl was allegedly punished for refusing to play basketball against a trans male athlete who claims to be female. Last month, a civil rights complaint was filed with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights on behalf of Frances Stout, alleging that the district was investigating the 15-year-old for misgendering her opponent and violating the district's policies against bullying and harassment. Before the game, Stout asked the school's principal and athletic director if the opposing player was a biological male that was considered misgendering. She was apparently just supposed to know he was male, presenting as female, and ignore it. After it was confirmed that the student was a biological male and Stout's pleas to have the player removed were denied, Stout refused to play. A school district employee allegedly told Stout's younger brother, who was taking a video of the game, "You better think twice about what you're doing right now." But they tried to investigate the girl, not the school district. The incident went viral, prompting the school district last Thursday to vote 3-1 to support a ban on male athletes competing in girls' sports. Washington State's high school athletes are allowed to compete based on the basis of their gender identity, regardless of actual sex. However, the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, the agency that governs sports in Washington, announced a proposal to create a separate open division for transgender athletes to compete in. The vote supported the WIAA's proposal. Last month, Washington State Superintendent of Public Instruction Chris Rakedal announced his plan to defy President Donald Trump's No Men in Women's Sports executive order, and he gave that rambling, incoherent nonsense when he tried to claim that this is about kids who are born with both biological parts. Yeah, I don't think that's what it's about at all. Craig Traynor, Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, told Fox News, OCR has directed investigations of educational institutions, state boards of education, interscholastic associations, and school districts. Demonstrates that the Trump Education Department will vigorously enforce Title IX to ensure men stop competing in women's sports. If Washington wants to continue to receive federal funds from the department, it has to follow federal law. The department is also investigating the high school athletic associations in California, Maine, Massachusetts, and Minnesota for refusing to comply with Trump's order. Is this really the hill you guys want to die on? It's an 80-20 issue. That means 80% of Americans support it, poll after poll after poll. The support for banning men from women's sports, biological males from women's sports, polls somewhere between 70 and 85%. That's even polls from the New York Times. That's even polls from CNN. Those are polls from everybody in my little red book of the Maoist media. Everybody agrees that this is an 80-20 issue. And yet, last night, what happened? Senate Democrats are the ones who voted to continue allowing boys to play against girls in girls' sports. Now, here's the crazy thing to me. This happened the same night a video went viral of a biological male basketball player injuring 3 girls during a basketball game. The same night this video goes viral, this is the vote they take. And now people are pissed. I'll tell you something that happened last night. Last night, my daughter saw me working on some of these stories since she saw the picture of Donald Trump surrounded by all the girls when he was signing the executive order to protect girls' sports. And she goes, "Oh, Dad, I love that picture. That's awesome. Can you send it to me? I love President Trump. He's sticking up for us." My daughter is not political, but she knows because she plays sports that Donald Trump is looking out for her, and Democrats are on the wrong side of this issue. Unfortunately, because no Democrats voted to protect women's sports, it didn't have enough votes to break the filibuster. Here's something to think about, by the way. The next time any Democrat says, "Believe all women," or, "I support this for women," I hear they're thinking about wearing pink tonight for women's rights or some such nonsense. Guys, just show them this vote. You guys were not there when girls needed you to protect their sports. And now Washington State's about to make it even worse. Washington State Democrats have introduced a constitutional amendment to protect gender-affirming care, buried in language about protecting access to abortions. The through line, as they see it, is to protect bodily autonomy, meaning that women, whatever they think that means, by the way, can have abortions and everyone else can have sex changes, all under the heading of doing whatever you want with your own body. Host of the Undivided podcast, Brandy Cruz, who first reported the move, said they are going to trick voters into supporting child mutilation by tying it to abortion. Abortion is already codified in Washington State, which means the whole point of this thing is to slip through the gender mutilation surgery for minors. According to Senate Joint Resolution 8204, at the next general election to be held in the state, the Secretary of State shall submit to the qualified voters of the state for their approval and ratification or rejection a new article to the Constitution of the State of Washington regarding reproductive freedom and gender-affirming care. The proposed article says the state shall not deny or interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom decisions, which includes the individual's fundamental rights to choose to have an abortion. That's codified in law already. The individual's fundamental right to choose to use contraception. And I don't think anybody's going to be in your bedroom to stop you. The individual's fundamental right to choose to use assisted reproductive technology. Yeah, nobody's doing that, you Looney Tunes. The individual's fundamental right to be free from discrimination on the basis of the individual's pregnancy outcome. What does that even mean? I'm an educated person. I have no clue what they're talking about. Nor shall the state deny or interfere with an individual's gender-affirming care decisions. That's what this is all about. Letting the kids have whatever surgeries they want, because don't forget, after Trump's executive order banning those surgeries, Seattle children stopped performing them and the left went psychotic. Now, the majority of Democrats in the Washington State Senate signed off on this, sponsored this, are pushing for this, which means they are no longer the fringe. They are the mainstream of the Washington Democrat Party. This is the nonsense they believe in. As we say all the time, you didn't leave the party left you. And if you want to say no to this insanity, call the legislative hotline, 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000, and say no to this amendment to the Washington State Constitution. It has nothing to do with abortion, even though that's what Democrats are going to say. It has everything to do with gender surgeries on minors. Only good news as we wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headline, your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And remember, the State of the Union address is only 11 minutes, now just over 10 minutes away from starting, my friends. Tomorrow morning from 6 to 9 a.m., John Carlson will have full analysis for you. And we, as always, will have analysis for you from 3 to 6 p.m. I love the State of the Union. I'm so looking forward to watching it tonight, whatever time I get home. I love the State of the Union. Anywho, other news to remember before we get to our good news giveaway. Don't forget to go to KVI.com for your last chance to try and win 4 tickets to the Seattle RV Show. The 61st Annual Seattle RV Show is rolling into Lumen Field Event Center from March 6th to 9th. That's this weekend. There will be over 400 brand new models from 50 manufacturers, 18 local dealers, and unbeatable show prices. Perfect place to explore the RV lifestyle. You'll find expert advice, special discounts, even free camping offers with select RV purchases. Head to the contest page at KVI.com for your chance to win tickets to the Seattle RV Show. And don't forget to swing by the KVI booth and say hi to Mike, who will be there, and there'll be a whole bunch of KVI goodies there. So make sure to show up to the Seattle RV Show and head to KVI.com, the contest page right now, and enter for your chance to win. Before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news stories for you. Mike found this one. Apparently, IHOP is celebrating National Pancake Day, which means a free short stack of pancakes. ABC 13's Jacob Hunziker got the chance to stop by a local IHOP on Fort Avenue and even make some pancakes Tuesday morning to promote the event. IHOP said they're celebrating National Pancake Day. They are offering dining guests a free short stack of buttermilk pancakes for one day only. Along with National Pancake Day savings, IHOP said they offer the IHOPPY Hour menu. Very clever. Every weekday with savings of up to 47%. Many locations offer free IHOP kids meals with an entree purchase every single evening. This is only at participating IHOP locations, so make sure to check which ones are near you. Also, saw this one here from Erie, Pennsylvania. According to WKRC, pet store goldfish are not only surviving the harsh winter conditions of Lake Erie, but thriving. These things are gigantic. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service posted a statement to Facebook on Tuesday warning fish owners about the potential dangers of releasing goldfish into Lake Erie. Your pet store goldfish after 2 years in the wild. Call me Megalodon, biologists wrote. This goldfish isn't supposed to be here, but someone released it thinking they were being kind. Instead, they created an invasive problem that can last for decades. It's like my previous homeowner, the guy who owned the house before me, thought it'd be cute to put up vines, to plant vines, and now I got to deal with them for the rest of the time.
That's a tuna or something.
This is not a tuna. This is a monster that he
That's
has
a
created.
tuna, bro.
The post include a photo of an enormous goldfish that was caught in Pennsylvania during an electrofishing survey. Well, if you electrify them, of course they're going to get huge.
Come on.
According to officials, goldfish have been found to be hardy and can thrive even in the cold waters of the Great Lakes. When goldfish are introduced to a body of water, it can have several consequences, which includes they can turn them into a murky mess, they breed quickly, they steal food from native species, they degrade the water quality, and they spread disease. Also, they become enormous. I wonder if anybody thought if they're tasty or not. See, that's the
Only
question.
in America.
That's the question you should be thinking right now.
That's a tuna, bro.
It is not a tuna. It's a goldfish.
Obama.
No, it's not.
That's a tuna or something.
I just literally hit the wrong button.
I was gonna say.
That's a tuner button is right above my Hank Williams Obama button.
Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, if I can find them buried here in my stack of papers. Ah, yes, here we go. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement and the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away two tickets to Brad Paisley at the Angel of the Winds Arena on May 31st. He is coming with Walker Hayes and May Estes. Get your tickets Friday at Ticketmaster.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes, be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement and the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 2 tickets to the Brad Paisley at the Angel Winds Arena on May 31st. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's going to do it for us, but we'll be back tomorrow with full State of the Union analysis and more. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.